Steffy Forrester stood behind the desk that had once belonged to her grandfather. She was stiff and her eyes were blazing with anger that she had tried and failed to hide. Hope Logan sat across from her, calm on the outside but preparing for the storm she knew was coming on the inside. There was a lot of family loyalty, betrayal, and legacy in the air between them, and both women knew that this talk was about more than just business. It was about who they were, their pride, and whose name really meant something in the fashion world they both loved. Steffy didn't waste any time. As she talked about her problems, her voice was sharp, clipped, and full of anger. Sales figures, confusion about brands, trust is gone for good. Steffy thought that hope for the future was a problem, and that it was based on favoritism and emotional manipulation rather than new ideas. She said that hope was hiding behind her last name, and that she thought she could get as many second chances as she wanted because she was a Logan. Hope listened, her jaw tightening as she felt the familiar pain of being judged not for her work but for her family. She quietly defended her line, reminding Steffy of its loyal customers, its moral mission, and the many employees who depended on it. But Steffy had already made up her mind. Hope felt like the ground had shifted beneath her feet when Steffy finally said the words. Cold, clear, and final. She lost her job. Starting right now. No time to get used to it. No giving in. Just a hard stop. The silence that followed was deafening, and the only sound was the faint hum of the city outside the window. Hope slowly got up, keeping her dignity even though she was going through a lot. She told Steffy that being a leader wasn't about being in charge. It was about having a vision. She then left the office, leaving Steffy alone with her victory, and the uneasy feeling that she might have just set off a bomb that she couldn't control. People at Forrester Creations talked a lot, and by the time Hope got to the parking lot, people were already talking about it. Some workers felt sorry for her, while others were scared because they knew that if Hope Logan could be cut so brutally, no one was safe. Hope sat in her car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel and fighting the tears that wouldn't stop. She wasn't just sad about losing her job. She was sad about losing the dream she had built. The hope that she could live in a world that always reminded her she didn't belong. Steffy, on the other hand, tried to convince herself that she had done the right thing. She met with Ridge and Eric and told them that her choice was necessary to protect the company's future. Ridge, as always, was torn and asked why it was happening now and why there was no discussion. Eric, always the peacemaker, said out loud that he was worried about how it would affect people's feelings. But Steffy stood her ground, saying that sometimes being a strong leader meant making choices that weren't popular. Even though she stood up for what she did, she had moments of doubt that she quickly pushed away because she didn't want to show weakness in a world that punished it. Katie Logan was in her office at Spencer Publications across town, reading the news on her tablet and getting angrier and angrier. She knew what this was really about. Strength. Take charge. Old grudges that look like business strategy. Katie had seen her sister fight hard to prove herself, only to have the same strict hierarchy get in her way over and over again. This time, Katie wasn't happy just giving her sympathy. She saw a chance. A chance to not only keep Hope safe, but also give her power. Katie called Hope right away. Hope's voice was strained and tired when she answered. Katie didn't waste time with empty words. She told Hope that she believed in her, that she knew her talent, and that Steffy's choice would not determine her future. Then she made an offer that made Hope stop in her tracks. Katie wanted Hope to lead a brand new fashion division under the Spencer name. This division would be in line with Hope's values, free of Forrester politics, and fully supported by Katie's resources. Hope was shocked. The thought seemed impossible. She had just lost everything, but now her sister was giving her a new beginning, something brave and risky that was all hers. Doubt started to creep in. Was she ready to give up the Forrester legacy? Could she live outside of the only fashion house she had ever worked at? Katie calmed her down by reminding her that they were born to change. The Logans didn't give up when doors closed. They made new ones. While Hope thought about the offer, Steffy heard that Katie was interested, which made her even angrier. This wasn't just Hope getting back on her feet. It was a fight. Steffy went after Katie, saying she was using the situation to hurt Forrester Creations. Katie shot back, not sorry, saying that none of this would be happening if Steffy hadn't pushed Hope out. The sisters-in-law fought, their argument a violent clash of ideas. Legacy versus evolution, control versus collaboration. Ridge was once again in the middle, torn between his loyalty to Steffy and his guilt over Hope. He told Steffy to think about it again, and warned her that pushing Hope into the arms of a competitor could have long-term effects. Steffy, on the other hand, would not give up. She thought this was war and she wouldn't back down. Hope finally agreed to Katie's offer, but she was scared. The news shook the fashion world to its core. There was a lot of talk in the news about betrayal, revenge, and the rise of a new power player. Hope stood next to Katie at the press conference, nervous but determined, and said that this wasn't about getting back at someone. It was about making something important. Something real. Something that showed who she really was. But behind closed doors, the emotional cost was very high. Hope felt guilty because she knew that her success could hurt people she still loved. Steffy, who was watching from a distance, hid her fear with confidence, but deep down she knew she had underestimated Hope's strength and Katie's strategic genius. As alliances changed and battle lines were drawn, one thing became very clear. Firing Hope didn't end the war. It had only changed it. The fight between Forrester and Logan was no longer just between them. It was professional, public, and permanent. And like in a soap opera, the effects were just starting to show. The news that Hope Logan was working with Spencer Publications didn't just spread through Los Angeles. It blew up. Within a few hours, fashion insiders, the media, and longtime friends of Forrester were all talking about what might happen. Some people thought it was Hope's chance to make up for her mistakes, while others called it a betrayal that was almost treasonous. But the reaction inside Forrester Creations was much more real. The mood changed from tense to openly hostile, and Steffi could feel it as soon as she stepped onto the design floor. People stopped talking. People looked at her. Steffi felt something dangerous for the first time since she took over. Doubt. She went back to her office and slammed the door shut behind her, her anger just below the surface. Steffi thought Hope would crawl away in defeat, but she didn't. She didn't just fade away into nothingness. Instead, she had teamed up with one of Forrester's strongest competitors, and even worse, she had done it with confidence. Steffi played the press footage back in her head. Hope standing next to Katie, her voice steady and her message clear. This wasn't desperation. This was a plan. Steffi hated that she didn't see it coming. Ridge tried to talk to his daughter again, but this time Steffi lost her cool. She told him that he always saw Hope through rose-colored glasses and never really stood by her when it mattered most. Old wounds came back, years of divided loyalties, half-hearted support, and emotional compromises that had made Steffi the tough leader she was now. Ridge, who was clearly shaken, realized too late that this was no longer just about business. It was about getting approval. And Steffi had to feel like she was chosen. Hope was starting to feel the weight of her choice across town. Hope was struggling with her conscience while Katie took care of the details like contracts, office space, and branding. She thought about the seamstresses she had worked with, the models who believed in her vision, and the history that was woven into every Forrester sketchbook. She knew it was ironic that the same company that had pushed her out had also made her who she was. And now she was ready to face it head-on. Katie, who was always practical, told her that growth often came from being uncomfortable. She told Hope to put all of her pain into the new line and turn her heartbreak into something that would change the world. And Hope did just that over time. She started drawing again, this time with designs that felt more free, bold, and free of the weight of legacy expectations. Fabrics that are good for the environment. Sizing for everyone. Messages that are based on empowerment instead of elitism. Hope felt creatively alive for the first time in a long time. But the piece didn't last long. Steffi moved on quickly and without saying sorry. She gave the go-ahead for an aggressive marketing campaign that was meant to hurt Hope's growing brand. At first, it was subtle with whispers about experience, credibility, and true fashion lineage. But it was clear that it was aimed at someone. It was clear what they meant. Hope was just an amateur playing dress-up, supported by Logan's money and feelings. Katie was furious when she heard about the campaign. She went right up to Steffi and told her she was turning a personal grudge into a smear campaign. Steffi didn't say no. She just smiled and told Katie that business was war. The collateral damage spread quickly. Brooke was torn between her daughter and the family she had worked so hard to be a part of. She begged Steffi to think about it again and calm down before things got out of hand. Steffi, who was cold but calm, reminded Brooke that no one could afford to be neutral in this fight. You were either loyal or you were useless. Meanwhile, the fashion world was eagerly waiting for Hope's first independent show to start. There was a lot of pressure. Critics were ready to call her a failure at the first mistake she made. Hope hardly slept because she kept having nightmares about empty runways and being humiliated in public. But every time she felt like doubt was going to take over, she remembered what Steffy had said. The end, the dismissal, and the idea that she would break. And that memory made her more determined. Dylan, on the other hand, appears to quickly adjust to the complex environment surrounding him. Even though he is still a little enigmatic, people who come into contact with him soon realize how confident and intelligent he is. He offers fresh insights on branding, design presentation, and international marketing tactics in creative meetings, challenging presumptions that have guided the business for years. At first, some designers object to his concepts because they see them as criticism of their own work. Others, however, quietly acknowledge that Dylan's observations frequently highlight opportunities they had missed. Even among those who continue to doubt his intentions, his presence starts to spark an unanticipated creative energy within the organization. Rich Forrester is among those who find the situation most fascinating. Rich has spent decades molding Forrester Creations' identity, and he is the most aware of how precarious the power dynamics within the organization can be. Rich believes there must be a misunderstanding when he first learns of Dylan's employment rumors. However, he reacts with a mix of curiosity and worry after learning the truth. Although Rich has faith in his daughter's intuition, he is aware that audacious choices may have unforeseen repercussions. He starts observing Dylan's interactions with the employees in silence, attempting to ascertain whether Steffy has made a wise decision or brought needless chaos into the business. Hope Logan finds it difficult to ignore the mounting uneasiness surrounding Dylan's presence at the same time. Hope has spent years carving out a niche for herself within the organization, especially with her fashion line that embodies her ideals of optimism and contemporary elegance. One of the most defining aspects of the show's long-running plot has been the rivalry between Hope and Steffy, which never completely goes away despite their efforts to work together professionally. Hope's gut tells her that something more significant is going on behind the scenes, as soon as she finds out that Steffy personally recruited Dylan. In an attempt to find out precisely what role Dylan has been assigned, Hope starts quietly questioning the staff. The responses she gets are ambiguous and frequently inconsistent. While some employees say Dylan is giving Steffy creative direction advice, others think he is helping shape future marketing campaigns. Hope's suspicions are only heightened by the ambiguity. She is familiar enough with Steffy to know when a move is purely strategic, and she can't get rid of the feeling that Dylan's presence could jeopardize her own projects at the company. Steffy's audacious choice has an impact on her personal life in addition to her professional life. John Finnegan, her husband, observes that she has been working longer hours and coming home with the intense concentration that frequently accompanies significant business decisions. Although Finn respects Steffy's commitment, he is concerned about the stress she bears. Finn has discovered that Steffy occasionally hides her concerns in order to protect the people she loves, and their relationship has persevered through incredible difficulties in the past. Steffy assures him that she just has big plans for Forrester Creations' future, when he politely inquires about how things are going at the company. Even though Steffy explains things calmly, she knows in private that things could get complicated. Because of his unusual personality, Dylan does not always adhere to business etiquette, and senior staff members are sometimes uncomfortable with his direct communication style. However, Steffy thinks that his very unpredictable nature is what makes him valuable. She has seen far too many employees of the company fall into old routines, using the same tactics without considering whether they are still effective in a field that is changing quickly. Dylan stands in for the disruption she feels is essential to development. At a crucial strategy meeting involving a number of important Forrester Creations figures, the tension finally reaches a turning point. Steffy formally introduces Dylan as someone who will be contributing to future creative initiatives as executives assemble around the conference table. Everyone in the room reacts to the announcement right away. While some participants exchange nervous looks, others seem intrigued. Silently observing from his seat, Rich closely examines Dylan's nonverbal cues and his assured responses to inquiries regarding his experience. Dylan makes a number of audacious suggestions about modernizing the company's brand identity and increasing its worldwide presence during the meeting. His suggestions include fashion campaigns that combine classic elegance with unexpected artistic elements, partnerships with up-and-coming designers, and digital marketing tactics targeted at younger audiences. The presentation challenges many of the presumptions that have shaped the company's marketing strategy for years, making it both ambitious and controversial. Steffy fervently defends the plan, stating that innovation is crucial if Forrester Creations wishes to stay at the forefront of the fashion industry, despite some executives' claims that the concepts are too risky. Throughout the meeting, Hope pays close attention, her face displaying both interest and worry. She acknowledges that some of Dylan's ideas are innovative and progressive, but she also worries that his increasing influence may cause the company's internal power dynamics to change. Hope's resolve to defend her own projects and preserve her independence as a designer is only strengthened by the prospect that Steffy may be using Dylan as a tactical ally. In the meantime, the characters' interpersonal bonds keep changing in tandem with the professional drama. Taylor Hayes has a distinct viewpoint and is aware of the psychological and emotional dynamics at work. Taylor, Steffy's mother, is pleased with her daughter's bravery and leadership. However, as a psychiatrist, she is also aware of the possible risks associated with bringing a volatile personality into an already complex setting. Taylor hopes that Steffy has thought through the ramifications of her choice, and that, in the end, Dylan's presence will unite rather than polarize those around her. As the days go by, it becomes more and more obvious that Dylan's arrival has caused a domino effect in the bold and the beautiful. Alliances are subtly changing, long-standing rivalries are starting to resurface, and Forrester Creations' future suddenly seems uncertain. Some staff members think Dylan could lead the business into a daring new phase of innovation and creativity. Others worry that the delicate equilibrium that has allowed the fashion house to prosper for so long could be upset by his erratic influence. But uncertainty has never been an excuse for Steffy to back down. She has always thought that having a bold vision and the guts to take chances when others are hesitant are essential for leadership. She is still certain that hiring Dylan could be one of the most significant turning points in the company's history, even though it may turn out to be the most contentious choice she has ever made. The question of whether Steffy has unleashed a brilliant new force within the company, or opened the door to a storm that could change everything, becomes impossible to ignore as secrets gradually come to light and the true implications of her strategy become apparent.